Okay, we should be good.
Okay. We can begin.
We're recording then?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the October 27th, 2020 regular board meeting of the Methacton School District Board of Directors. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hello, my name is Varsha Ironbar, and I'm an 8th grader at Arcola. Now please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam President, as we typically do with the opening of the October meeting, we also have another student from Arcola Intermediate School who will also like to say a few words. We have Michael Angola. And just bear with me one second while we share his message with everyone on the call.
Hello. Hello, I am Michael Ignola, and I am a 8th grade student at Arcola Intermediate School. I have been kindly asked to shed some light on some of the amazing things Arcola has to offer as a chosen representative for the school. One thing I think that Arcola does really well is they allow you to be more independent and they give you more freedoms. They don't just make you take that honors class or assign you that language to learn. They let you choose if you want to step down and take an easier class or if you want to take French or Spanish. Another thing they do well is their after-school programs. I feel like those are really well organized, planned out, and just fun for everyone. They're probably fun for everyone is because the staff is so kind, open to questions and suggestions, and just very understanding and welcoming. I feel that ever since the COVID pandemic started, Arcola has been handling the whole situation very well, seeing as they have been cautious and up to date on all the COVID facts. Those are some of the many amazing things that Arcola School has to offer.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Varsha, for both the pledge and the wonderful statements. And then we will also be hearing from Arcola Intermediate Principal, Ms. Mangano, here in just a few minutes as well. But we can continue with the agenda.
Thank you, Dr. Zerbe, and thank you to our Arcola Junior School Board Directors. The public is hereby advised of the audio and video recording of this meeting for the purposes of rebroadcasting. Given the need to conduct this board meeting in a virtual environment, the directors required members of the public wanting to make comments on agenda items or at courtesy of the floor to pre-register by 5 o'clock today on the district website. By way of attendance, we will do a roll call. Ms. Cancro?
Here.
Ms. Drummond?
Here.
Ms. Hull?
Here.
Mr. McGinnis?
Here.
Mr. Navarette is not on. Ms. Purdue?
Here.
Ms. Reese?
Here.
Mr. Winters?
Here.
Okay, thank you. Recognition of guests and scheduled speakers. Dr. Zerbe.
Thank you, Madam President. This evening, we have a number of speakers. We have the M Awards presentation with Dr. Mangano and also the Award of Excellence. Dr. Mangano from Arcola Intermediate School is here as well. We also have a special guest with us, and Dr. Angstad will introduce Aaron Seyfried Townsend from the Children's Mental Health Department of Montgomery County. We also have Dr. Spiewak with a Winter Athletic and Activities Health and Safety Plan recommendation. And then I have a short update as well as Dr. Walsh has an update on the return to on-premise instruction. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Amy Mangano, principal of Arcola Intermediate School.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Zerbe, and thank you to the School Board of Directors for having me here this evening. My name is Dr. Mangano, and I am the principal at Arcola Intermediate School, although I don't think I could have said any of those things better than my two junior board spokespeople. Oh my goodness. And it makes me proud because of some of the things they actually said. That's wonderful. I am here tonight to honor some very special people. The first part of the presentation is to share some outstanding news about our students. Every year, we recognize the academic excellence earned by Arcola and Methacton high school students who have earned a 93% or greater cumulative grade point average during the previous school year. For the 2019-20 school year, there were 209 Arcola students who earned M Awards for their academic achievements. 90 students represent the 7th grade and 116 students represent the 8th grade. So I want to congratulate them because that's a big accomplishment. Also, in light of everything happening, people are still rising. It's fabulous. We have posted a video announcement to recognize the M Award winners on the Arcola website under featured news and announcements. Congratulations from all of the staff and all of our students on these students and their amazing achievement. We're really proud of you. So thank you for that. Just a congratulations for them. Sorry, we can't be here this evening, but the video will certainly highlight all of their names. Thank you, Dr. Zerbe.
And next on the agenda, we have the Award of Excellence, where we have some fine employees of Methacton School District, particularly of Arcola Intermediate School, that I'm sure Dr. Mangano wants to also share with everyone. Dr. Mangano?
Thank you again. This is like an Arcola night, and all for such good reasons. I kind of like that. So thank you for having us here. And this is a great moment to be able to look at some silver lining, things as we're going through a difficult time. So to be able to talk about kids, to see the kids' faces, and to now talk about some staff members brings me great joy and great pride. The first one I'd like to present to you this evening is Wendy Mckenzie. And I'm not going to read every slide to you. You have a long night ahead of us. So basically what I want to say about Wendy is she's exceedingly flexible and amazing. She brings joy in everything she does. And she has absolutely played a key role, especially recently as she's been asked to come out of her current role in the library and assist as a coach. She is diligent and outstanding, but she brings a smile to every single thing she does on a daily basis. She's just incredible. So that's our Wendy. Next slide, please. It is my pleasure to present to you Mrs. Motley. When it comes to leadership and student connections, Mrs. Motley is, as I mentioned here, a game changer. Her strengths are in the area of English language arts. However, she contributes to our school on a much deeper level. She works to collaborate with all stakeholders, puts her students first, and she has a bonus background in technology, which adds a dimension to her skill set. And no matter what the task for our building, she is a voice. She demonstrates, and it was one of these words the kids mentioned, kindness and compassion, and is truly dedicated. I am grateful to have her as a team member. Mr. Jeff Miller comes to you this evening with a full heart for his students. He cares deeply for their educational, social, and emotional well-being, and he works tirelessly to make sure they are included in every opportunity possible at Arcola. He works to collaborate with every teacher, every parent, and every administrator, and advocates for his kids all the time. He has served on many staff committees in our building and enters each day with a positive attitude and smile that speaks volumes to his kindness that he shows all kids. Mr. Ed Lenters is an absolute joy to work with if you have not had the pleasure. So on the evenings when I'm about to pack up, he's on duty and he takes great pride in his work. He goes above and beyond to greet people on our building with a friendly smile and hello. He's kind and he's caring, and he's and there is assets and there are strengths, but he also takes like impeccable time to make sure that areas are done to the way that they need to be. And if they're not, he wants to know because he wants to fix it right away. So he's just a pleasure to have, and we're grateful to have him on our staff. Mrs. Donna Narr is the friendly voice, believe it or not, on our attendance calls. So she finds ways to support and help our families and students. She's creative in her thinking, which we need, and helps our office team run very smoothly. She's got a kind voice, she's patient, and a great smile, and great ideas that help us. And Mrs. Nahr has amazing qualities and goes a long way to help our families and our staff. Mrs. Cecilia is new to our COLA this past year, but we're lucky to have found her. She is extremely talented and provides knowledge and support to the staff and our office team. She shows patience, kindness, and compassion. She puts our students and staff and families at ease every time they call. She's also the voice at the assistant principal's office. So, you know, that's not always the best and friendly call to be receiving, and she handles it beautifully. She was also a great help this year in working with the Related Services Group and was reappointed there and became a great leader. So she's fabulous, and we're looking forward to having her back at our COLA. That might be my last one.
That is. Let's give a round of applause for all those employees for their outstanding work.
Thank you for letting us highlight them this evening. I'm very appreciative.
And thank you to all those employees, both today and in the past, that have made Methacton a place called home and a wonderful place to learn and grow. So thank you, Dr. Mangano. We appreciate you sharing both student and staff recognition with us this evening. Next on the agenda, we have Dr. Angstad. Dr. Angstad, I'm going to ask you to introduce the mental health update. And Dr. Angstad, it sounds like you have another friend with you.
Barking dog. I'm
Okay.
so sorry. Can you hear me okay? All right, she'll stop in a minute. Somebody pulled up. And I told him not to let her bark. All right, thank you, Dr. Zerby. I want to share a brief update on the mental health supports available in our district. In addition to our school counselors and our home and school visitor, who are here to support our families and our students. We also partner with Carson Valley Children's Aid for our SAP program, Central Behavioral Health, who provides 5 mental health specialists in the district K-12, Springfield Psychological, who supports our students in the REACH program. Additionally, the Special Education Alliance, known as the SEA, often offers mental health related workshops, and I'm pleased to say they will be hosting one on mindfulness on November 19th at 7 p.m. If you are interested in attending that virtual workshop, you can find registration information on the SEA website. The district is also very fortunate to be supported by the Montgomery County Department of Mental Health. Tonight, it is my pleasure to introduce Erin Seyfried Townsend, the Children's Mental Health Program Director for the Office of Mental Health, who will be sharing some information on COVID-related anxiety and supports that are available in the county. Erin?
Thanks, Dr. Angstad. Is there a presentation that's going to be thrown up? There it is. Thanks so much for having me. Next slide, please. So Dr. Angstad reached out, and the first thing I just want to talk about, I think, is something that weighs heavily on all of our minds. I'm a parent myself. So how do we talk about COVID-19 with our kids? Because they listen, they hear everything that's going on. So here are just some quick tips, and you can change these because I think as parents, we know and caregivers, we know our kids the best. So tweak these to your liking within your family. Whenever we talk about taking care of our kids, we have to talk about taking care of ourselves first. I like to use the analogy of the airplane. They always say, you know, put your oxygen mask on first, so then you can help to support the people around you. And I think when we talk about any sort of mental health issue or anything that's going on in the world, there's a lot of heavy stuff out there right now. We want to make sure we're taking care of ourselves first. So that's why it's number one. Also remain calm. Our kids react to us. They see us. They are good readers of people, even the littlest ones amongst us. So they will pick up on our cues. So when we have these conversations, we want to make sure we're remaining calm. We want to reassure our kids that they're safe. and let them know it's okay to feel upset. All feelings are valid feelings, and it's important that we talk through those things with our kids. Make sure that you're available to listen and to talk. Carve out time. I know, working from home is tough. You have kids at home. I have a baby and a kid, and you're working from home. It's a lot. So when I say time, I mean 10 minutes will do it. Carve out 10 minutes of time to talk to your kids individually if about what's going on. Next slide, please. This is important, I think, for kids and for ourselves. The media, whether it's social media or the TV, is inundated with all kind of information. You might want to consider how much your family is ingesting of that information and parameters around that. You want to talk to your kids in a manner that's truthful and appropriate. Again, this is where I say, we know our kids best. So whatever developmental level your kid is at, that's the level that you should speak to them, and you know them best. To give them a little bit of control, you want to teach them what they can do to keep themselves safe. And also, when school opens, if school opens, talk about what their teachers are doing. We just highlighted a wonderful custodian that's taking extra care of the buildings. So those are the sort of things we want to let our kids know what's going on. All of this stuff I found on the CDC website. There's so much information out there. So I invite you to, if you want to know more, that's a great resource. And now I will talk about some local resources that might be helpful. Next slide, please. So within Montgomery County, Dr. Einstedt did mention student assistance through Carson Valley Children's Aid. Maria Markakis is the program supervisor. I love to put, a name and an actual person behind an agency. So she's wonderful. They offer individual and group support, and that support is free support. It's provided, through funds through the county, to the school district, and through Carson Valley Children's Aid. So that is available. And then, so, people want to go to therapy. They want to talk to somebody. Is that still happening, with the pandemic? Absolutely it is. Parents and caregivers might not feel safe taking their children to an actual office. I want you to know that virtual telehealth services are available. If you have private insurance, I would encourage you to call the back of your insurance, turn over your insurance card, call the back number, and ask for behavioral health services. If you have medical assistance insurance, Creative Health Services is the closest provider, largest provider to the Methacton area. I would ask you to call their admin case management. The number is listed there, and just kind of explain what's going on, and they can help offer support. Sometimes our kids don't want to talk to us. They want to talk to somebody else. So we have the Teen Talk line, which is available 7 days a week from 1 to 9. It's a warm line, which means kids can be anonymous. They can text, they can call in, and it's going to be a peer on the other end. And that sounds scary. It's another kid on the other end. However, they're closely monitored, they're trained, and it is linked to the Montgomery County Mobile Crisis Unit. So if anything goes topsy-turvy, they're directly connected. But kids, they're validated. They can talk about relationship issues with being on virtual school, all that sort of thing. They can cover there. The next slide, please. And then some resources for caregivers. So both of these options are provided by Family Mentor and Advocacy Network of Montgomery County. Claire Higgins is the program supervisor for that program. They are offering virtual support groups. It is what it sounds like, it's a support group, but they've moved online. And then they also offer virtual drop-in office hours, which is less, I would say it's more informal than an actual support group. So people can just call in and say, this is going on. This is also out there for teachers, administrators, anybody that is helping to support a family or a student, and maybe need just a little bit of guidance in the mental health world, because with acronyms and all different sort of things, different levels of care, it can be quite confusing. And I've been in this, and you see my title. So it can just help guide folks through that. And then the last slide, the second to last slide, I always like, put this number in your phone for yourself, for your family, for your friends, for supporting students. 1-855-634-HOPE is the number for Access Mobile Crisis. We do fund them at the county, so again, no charge. It is available to the entire community. We like to say that we wish crisis wasn't in their title, because these folks are wonderful, and they are there to help support people so they don't fall into a mental health crisis. So they can help support prior to things, snowballing out of control, and now, and also when stuff snowballs out of control, they can also help, but they are there 24/7. So please put it in your phone and offer it to friends and family if they're in need of support. And then the last slide, this is a link. So Dr. Einstein said I could talk for 5 minutes, so there's no way I could talk about everything we have in 5 minutes. So there is a link here to our very extended guide with descriptions of all the different levels of care. There's a multitude in the kaleidoscope out there of mental health services for kids. And that guide really goes through each thing in detail. And I don't know if we can take questions on this format, but I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Certainly. Are there any questions from members of the board for Erin?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say thank you so much. I mean, even I loved your pleasant manner of presenting such a heavy topic. And my only question is for Dr. Zerbe. Will this be somewhere very accessible for our families?
Yes, we're going to post this in the, I believe it's called the Parent Center on our website. Ms. Brucker had started that, and there's a number of other support services, but we'll add this presentation and we'll highlight this link here for families, since it takes us to a full collection of resources, as Erin had pointed out.
Thank you. Yep.
Are there other questions from members of the board?
Yes, I just also have a similar comment. I just want to say thank you for coming to present this really important material to the families in our district, and to provide these resources so we have everything in one place. And I just want to ask if we could, the presentation that the SEA is sponsoring, if we can add that link to our website in a prominent place for upcoming events, that would be great. Thank you.
We'll do. And thank you, Erin, and to all that your organization does in partnership with not only the Methacton School District, but all the school districts here in Montgomery County. We really appreciate all the support that you provide. Dr. Angstead, do you have any final comments?
Do not, but I do want to just thank Erin. Her and I talk often and collaborate often. Jen Johnson is also part of our core team, and so I just appreciate all her support that she provides to us.
We're happy. We're in this together. We're happy to partner.
Thank you.
Hold on, Mr. Winters, you have a question?
Yeah, one last question that just popped in my head. Are you the ones that have provided us the ROAR program, Dr. Angstead?
I'm sorry, what program?
I think it was called ROAR, with the early child.
It comes
awareness?
out of the Montgomery County Department of Health.
Okay.
But I'm not sure it's out of the mental health department.
They're like our cousin in the building.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? If not, Erin, thank you so much for your time this evening and sharing this valuable information with us and being a partner in education.
Happy
Have a
to.
wonderful evening.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next on the agenda, we have Dr. Spiewak. Dr. Spiewak is here to present the Winter Athletic and Activities Health and Safety Plan recommendation. So Dr. Spiewak, I will post that on the screen, and you can take the board through that presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Zerbe, and thank you, members of the school board, for allowing me to present our plan of action for winter sports to begin their off season. The date for the official start of winter athletics is November 20th. While that date could change, at this time, November 20th looks to be the official start. And this is our plan of action, very similar to the plan of action that was presented for our fall sports to begin on September 7th. The same concept here with a basic start, return. This is just a statement about returning to activity following inactivity, while we recognize that many or most of our student athletes that are participating in winter athletics most likely have been active. We don't want to assume that for everyone. So we would take an approach that would allow for a lighter week 1, transitioning to a heavier week 2, and moving forward into November 20th with enough time to prepare for full contact winter sports as it stands today. This next section just talks about our high risk groups. This is the same section that was listed in our previous off-season plan. I'm listed as the point of contact for questions or concerns regarding winter athletics and activities, as well as our athletic trainer. In terms of this section at the top here just lists what would take place prior to any practices or games with regards to the PPE requirements, and also the pre-workout screenings, very similar to what we're doing now in the fall, which we feel has worked really well. You would notice that some of the areas that we discussed with the property committee changed some of the verbiage to must wear masks when possible, depending on the sport and the situation. In terms of the pre-screening form, as I mentioned, this will continue to be updated per what we feel is the most up-to-date screening process, but the format would remain the same, which would be done by the coaches through a Google form, with the results page being accessible by the athletic office and the athletic training office. The next section references social distancing, which, similar to fall sports, social distancing would take place when possible, with an emphasis on times where you're not participating in the actual athletic event. Coaches would continue to remain 6 feet apart when possible. And then as we move forward with the plan to November 20th, there would be full contact, as the light at the end of the tunnel here would be moving into our actual competition, which would take place in December or January, depending on what the PIAA and the conference determines is the best approach in terms of games. The number of participants I did want to mention would be fluid. It will either be determined based on an overall number, like 25, which was a number that we utilized often in the beginning of this fall. But certainly if there were opportunities to look at percentages with 20% or 25% of different facilities, we would be doing that as well for both our practices and our events. But ultimately, the number of participants will be monitored by the athletic office, and will certainly be dictating to each individual group, depending on size of facility and number of athletes. But we will be working together with our coaches to make sure that we have the space and the plan of action to participate in our sports in full, while still being as safe as possible. Similar to the fall, our equipment sanitizing process will be put in place for both the equipment and also the facility that is being used. And the facilities department has been outstanding in working with us to make sure that they have a schedule of events for practices and games, to make sure that we're able to sanitize those areas, contingent upon the number of uses by our athletic and activity groups. The bathrooms, depending on the size of the facility, we would try to hold to a maximum of 2 individuals at any time sent by a specific coach. We will work with facilities to make sure that we have a large number of indoor facilities available after hours. And again, facilities has been amazing. We communicate with each other so that they know which bathroom facilities are used after hours, after the school day, and which are not. In terms of hydration, we will require that students provide their own water bottles and hydration, which we did in the fall. The one difference is we will allow use to our touchless water spouts that will allow for safe refilling of those water bottles. But the same concept exists here in the winter, where they're going to need to be marked, and they're going to need to be utilized only by one person, and they must have water with them in order to participate. In terms of hygiene, very similar to the fall, we're just going to ask that they continue to wash their hands and use their hand sanitizer stations that will be provided. Ventilation, we just wanted to confirm that we will be, again, this could be fluid depending on what we deem most appropriate, but we will be working, the athletic office and the facilities department will be working together to make sure that we're providing the best possible ventilation system for each of our indoor athletic facilities. and the cleaning process will remain the same as the fall. Will be, as I stated already, be working together and make sure that the facilities department knows exactly what gym spaces and pool area that we're using on a daily basis. Same as the fall, the next section just talks about what would happen if we did have a COVID case or a secondary COVID case. We've been working through that all fall. Cheryl Pfeiffer has been absolutely amazing, and Dr. Zerbe. We all work together to make sure that we're communicating with the county health department to do what's in the best interest of our individual athletes and our teams. This next section is the same section that you saw in the fall in terms of the classification of the different sports. The reason why that's important for off-season is because there are aspects of certain sports that we can modify in order to at least begin with minimizing the risk. We did discuss this with the property committee and came up with a determination that in week one, you could utilize, for example, I'll use basketball as the example. You would be able to utilize your own basketball and practice your own sport-specific drills and skill development, but without sharing of equipment in week one. This would allow for students to set up a scenario where they'd be able to get involved in the activity, allow the coach to be able to start working with those student athletes, but without sharing of equipment in week one. However, in week two, we would up the time of the workout and also move towards the sharing of a basketball, for example, but still with no contact. So the coach would still be setting up practices in a way that would allow for, depending on the sport, would allow for individual skill development and for sharing of equipment, but in a way that would allow for the least opportunity for the spread of the virus. And so therefore they would not be utilizing full contact at this time. And week two would then move towards November 20th. And as we stated in the property committee meeting, we would continue to evaluate this the same way we did in the fall. And if members of the school board, Dr. Zerbe, the athletic office administration, believe that there's opportunities to make some changes, either with more restrictions or less restrictions, then we certainly would be able to have those conversations to try to adjust in the best way possible for our student athletes. The next section just takes, and I won't read each individual sport, and unless somebody has questions, this just lays out the most current recommendations for each individual sport in terms of how they would best be able to prepare for the season, but in the safest way possible. PIAA continues to state that they will be releasing, just as they did in the fall, they will be releasing winter protocol recommendations, guidelines for each specific sport. As soon as those are released, I will plan to share those right away and adjust our protocol accordingly. But this is the protocol that we have in place at this time without guidance from the PIAA, and that should be out, we keep hearing soon. But again, each individual sport here has been listed, and there are certainly some challenges that we're going to be working through in the winter that we didn't necessarily need to work through in the fall, but we are prepared to work through them together. And a shout out to the fall coaches who continue to do a great job with the protocol. And I know the winter coaches have been in contact with our office, and we have a plan of action to take this very seriously and make sure that we're preparing our student athletes, but in the safest way possible.
And just one comment, Dr. Spiewak, in terms of the number of participants, I think that is also strictly related to the ruling in Montgomery County Department of Health for the number of participants in a facility. So while we have the numbers listed here, we will also be confirming any change in those numbers with the Montgomery County Department of Health, just to make sure we have that squared away. Other questions from members of the board? Again, this is an item for your for action this evening. As you recall, we had this on the agenda for the work session, but we had canceled that meeting as a result of a lengthy special meeting that same evening. And Dr. Spivak is here to answer any questions you may have. Ms. Reese?
I was part of the property committee, so I don't really have any questions. He addressed them all at that time. I do have one, because you brought it up, the participants of 25 and below. I would imagine there are some sports, winter sports, that have more than that number of participants. So I would imagine they'll be taking turns, or we'll be updating it as Montgomery County updates us. Is that how it'll work?
That's correct. We would be working with each individual sport, and those sports that either through their number of athletes or in combination with the coaches would exceed 25, we would be working with the county for that particular facility to confirm that we have approval to either have in excess of 25, or, as you mentioned, we would then split our groups accordingly depending on what our max number would be from the county.
Okay. And just a quick comment, as a board member, as a community member, as a parent of 3 student athletes, I've just been really incredibly impressed with the fall. I do not want to jinx it, so I won't say anything more about that, other than to say that I was very just impressed with the athletes, the coaches, the parents, for following everything. And I will also note our security staff at several events. I saw very politely and firmly remind people about masks, and it just made me feel better. Like I said, as a parent, a school board director, and a community member. So as you shouted out to your staff, shout out to everyone involved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Cancro?
So I had a lot of questions from parents, and I know it's not per se under sports, it's under the club. Just dealing with the ski club, both in the Arcola level and the high school, and just, what is our steps on researching whether the ski club could continue and how we're looking at that?
I can answer that generically, only in the sense that similar to several other overnight types of activities, that we're certainly open to proposals from whether it be staff members or the people that would typically be running those types of trips, like the ski club. We do have concerns regarding, I'll speak for myself, I have concerns regarding overnight trips. It's one thing if you have 2 or 3 hours where you're looking to put in protocol to try to keep everybody safe. But I've been on those trips before, and while they're amazing experiences and I would love to see them continue, there's just so much downtime for opportunities.
What about, like, even if there's the offering of the day trips of, like, the ones that are closer, to see if that's the different options? But
absolutely,
I just know there was a high interest in those questions from parents about continuing if ski was open in PA, that we look at it and research it.
Absolutely. Our philosophy at this time is that we're willing to take a look at proposals from any activity sponsor. And if we're able to work together and find a way for it to be safe, then we would go through the proper channels to make sure that it was approved and vetted, and we would be open to those types of experiences for the students. Absolutely.
Other questions? I'm sorry. Anyone else? Ms. Aubrey-Larsenis?
Not so much a question, but just a comment. There's a policy blog that Children's Hospital of Philadelphia has put out that our fellow board member, Mary Hull, has been so kind as to share with some of us. And one of the things that I saw that came out of that was they're finding that I know that there's been some talk at the county level about increased transmission of COVID in youth sports, but what they're finding is that the increased transmission rates are not happening on the playing field. It is the before the game, the after the game, the parties that happen in conjunction with the games. It's the off the field behavior. So I think that underscores the importance of having this health and safety plan for sports, and for the families and people in the community that are watching, it underscores the importance for our families to follow these protocols. I will say, having gone through the fall sports season, I have been very impressed with the Methacton parents and Methacton families on the sidelines. Every once in a while you see somebody without a mask, but I can tell you most of the time it's not someone from Methacton. So I do appreciate how seriously our parents are taking this. It's what allows our kids to continue with the sports. So thank you, Dr. Spiewak, for the work that you put into this plan. It's keeping everybody safe. So thanks.
Thank you. And thank you to Ms. Hull for sharing that article. I certainly plan to reference the article as we move into our winter coaches meetings. While I believe our winter coaches believe they understand how serious this is, it certainly acts as a very necessary reminder that that we need to not only be worrying about while we have these student athletes during practices and games, but making sure we're reminding them of how important it is for the entire, athletic operation, that we make sure that it's a 24-hour process, that we're making sure that we're taking care of this. The article makes total logical sense that many of those team gatherings that we in the past found so important can really be detrimental to this process if they're not done correctly.
Any other questions or comments for Dr. Spiewak on this matter? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. Thank you, Dr. Spiewak, for providing the presentation and your work in this area. We do really appreciate it. The next item on the agenda is an update on the return to on-premise. And it's not something that I have a presentation, but it's a little bit of information that I and Dr. Walsh are going to share here this evening as we progress. And more detail of that will be provided in our weekly memo to the board. But generally speaking, the district's parent survey was completed with a 95.74% return. We are in the process of calling the families that are still outstanding, but we feel that's a pretty good return. Thanks to Ms. Kelly for all of her due diligence and communications, not only in the regular 6 o'clock phone call for the last couple of days, and we're only smiling because I got them too, and I don't have any kids that have to register for this process, but that's okay. But the good news is, and certainly she can speak about this, but we were able to deliver those in many of the home languages of our families, and I think that is a good start to improving our communications on a larger scale. She also did a wonderful job in making sure that all the documents associated with this were translatable in a number of languages through an applet that's included within our website. So I appreciate her work on that. So a lot of work was done in the communication aspects, and I thank the entire administrative team for their work on that. But of that 95% response, we had 41.3% of the students choosing Methacton online, and 58.7% choosing the return to a hybrid model. These percentages for the hybrid then are broken down in this fashion. And remember, board members, I'll send this data with a couple more details for you in the Friday memo. But Arrowhead had 66.7% hybrid, Eagleville 67.6%, Woodland 49.1%, Worcester 71.6%, Skyview 61.8%, Arcola 62.3%, and Methacton High School 50.8%. Overall, of the students choosing hybrid, 60% are choosing to return to hybrid instruction by using district-provided transportation. To just give you an idea of some of the numbers based on the survey data that we had. So a number of us are working through that process, and we are targeting hopefully even before November 2nd, but November 2nd, there will be a communication to all families to let them know what the day or sequence they'll have for the return to hybrid. In terms of other matters that we've been working on and accomplished, Ms. Kelly is also working with me on finalizing a data dashboard for the website This will keep our families and our community apprised of how the district is handling and what cases are maybe occurring inside the district. In addition to posting the county data that we've shared in the previous presentations last week, we've also updated the health screening self-check based on the county recommendations and the help of our nurses from the pandemic team. We've created a health and safety quick guide for our teachers that should be going out in the next day or so. We are finalizing the Y Care program. That's the before, after, and during school care. Again, we found space for that, and we're finalizing all the details and trying to communicate that out to the families that are already taking advantage of that during school care. And Ms. Kelly and our facilities department has been working with our building principals to finalize the posting of signage in classrooms, cafeterias, common areas, the main lobbies, restrooms, hallways, stairwells, all the things that we said that we were going to be putting signage in. And we've received a number of questions from the Methacton Education Association that I'll be responding to tomorrow to hopefully better communicate with not only the association, but with all of our staff. And lastly, we have Dr. Walsh, who has a couple items that he wants to share as well. Dr. Walsh?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Zerbe. Good evening, everyone. Just a couple updates. One of the things that Dr. Zerbe had mentioned earlier was our return to on premises for those students whose families chose that. So one of the things we were going to get is in the teacher's hands by later tomorrow or Thursday morning at the latest is a teacher guide. And it's basically going to provide some instructional models, procedures, and ideas that they can use to incorporate the technology into the students that are in front of them, as well as those who are at virtual and at home, as well as how we can support all our learners, our special needs students, as well as ELL, reading support, et cetera. So that'll all be addressed in this teacher guide that'll be coming out, again, later tomorrow or early on Thursday. We're planning professional development for November 3rd and 4th. So on Tuesday, November 3rd, we've been working really hard. I have to just take a quick moment, though. It's been a Herculean effort. And I just want to thank the teachers, staff members, and all the administrators for helping to launch this, what I'm expecting to be a very successful professional development. So without further ado, I'll just say the building principals who are a big part of this are meeting with their staff on November 3rd to go over the health and safety plan. They'll be going over procedures, routines as well. They'll be working with the tech coordinators and the coaches and the integrators throughout the day, and they'll be providing support as needed. On November 4th, which is the Wednesday, that's the Act 80 day, continued professional development will be focusing on the instructional models. We'll provide teachers some choice based on their needs, interests. There'll be time for department, grade level, common area subjects, et cetera. So there'll be a myriad of activities going on those 2 days. And it's just going to get our teachers ready to welcome students back in and continue to work with the students that are choosing the distance learning through the hybrid model. And then also for the week of November 9th, when we actually will officially welcome those students who chose to come back, we're looking at a district-wide Green and White Spirit Day, just to build that community spirit K to 12. Lots of things are going to be happening in the building through orientations, through tours. It's just, like I mentioned last week, it's that gradual dip toe in the water to get the students accustomed to having, school back. And I think it's important that we remember it's been 8 months for some of these students who have stepped foot in school. So, really understanding it's like 3 summer vacations. It's been a long time for some of these students, and those students who are new to buildings, the principals have worked very hard on putting plans together to make them feel welcome, make them feel warm. And it's really just about connectivity, connecting the students who are at home and who are going to continue to stay at home, as well as those students who are coming in every other day. So it's really about building that caring community, working on social, emotional, and just really we're going to make a huge difference. And I think this is just a great first step to getting some normalcy back in to what that would be in a regularity. So again, thank you to the board for their support. Thank you for the teachers, administrators, and all the support staff. It's a collaborative effort, and it shows. So we're well on our way to getting there. So thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Walsh. Are there any questions from members of the board on the current status of the return to on-premise plan?
Oh, sorry, Samira, you raised your hand and I didn't. And as a teacher, I should know better. I called out. I'm so sorry. All right, but I'll
You're
just be
going to-
quiet and start
We're
talking.
going to send you to the
I won't
principal's
do it
office.
again. Sorry. Oh, now I forgot my question. Oh, yeah, sorry. Just to reiterate, I heard some questions from parents and you brought it up, Dr. Walsh. November 3rd and 4th, students have off, and those days the teachers have more help preparing for this hybrid and learning about not only some of the technology pieces, but the health and safety plan. Is that what you were saying?
That is correct. And there'll be a district reminder going out as well, reminding parents that those are off days for the students, the election day, November 3rd, and then Act 80 day, November 4th.
Okay, so does our staff, and I'm not questioning their work at all, they're working hard. So one of those days is definitively for them to get ready, and is one day one of their flex days? I forgive me, I forget what Act 80 is and what Act 80 isn't, because I don't have flex days, so I don't know what they are.
Yeah, it's a non-student day, but it's around professional development. So that Wednesday, November 4th, is all about professional development for teachers. And there'll be a myriad and a menu of activities that they can choose from, as well as time to work with their department, their grade level, common subject areas.
And Ms. Reese, if you're referring to the flex day as part of the MyAct process, the in-service days as labeled in-service are not part of that process. And nor is this additional Act 80 day as per the approval last week. So there's not, it has nothing to do with the MyAct process. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now we have Ms. Purdue has a question. She kindly had her hand up. Ms. Purdue.
Just wondering what some of the plans, I know you said the building principals are working on it, but I was wondering if we have a general idea of the plans to bring those students that are new to buildings. I'm thinking the kindergarten is new to Methacton itself and new to maybe Skyview or Arcola and even the high school. Do we have an idea of what some of those welcome plans will look like?
Yeah, Ms. Purdue, I have a couple of, I'll just give you like a top side view. The 9th grade will be doing freshman mini tours of the building, getting them acclimated to the high school. There's similar things happening at Arcola, as well as, like, as you mentioned, the new students at Skyview, the 5th graders, and building some commonalities and some getting the students accustomed in kindergarten. But we also have new first graders. That's why we included them in those first days as well, because if they went to a private kindergarten, just again, each of the building principals are working on really robust things that'll help get the students acclimated, because normally we would do that orientation in the spring or the summer. So those days are dedicated starting on November 9th.
Okay. And that's why I was going to ask exactly what days do we plan to do that, but it'll be on that first day.
Yeah. And like I said, we're bringing small groups in. We're not bringing all K-12 in the week of the 9th. The week of the 16th is when we'll go 100%.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Mr. Winters has his hand up. Mr. Winters.
Yeah, 2 quick questions. I imagine the numbers actually surprised me a little bit. I believe that in many districts, it's about 70% coming back often. I don't know if it's just an interesting aspect of we're only just under 60. I'm wondering if that changes the decision making for some staff that had concerns about the number of students that were going to be in their class. So my question is actually maybe for Che. What is the timeline for both the MEA and MESPA members to weigh in on what their decisions are?
A good question. We actually set up our interactive calls starting tomorrow, basically for waiting for this data so we can share that with them as we call. So we now have a number of requests that have been filed with the office, and our natural first step is to call with any kind of checking on accommodations, starting the interactive process, and this will be one of the items that we share I don't have specific information about their exact classrooms, but we're obviously pretty confident with some of the averages of the buildings that we'll have a pretty good indication of what those rooms may look like.
Okay, that was my follow-up, if they had specifics. And then the second question, maybe Dr. Wolf, is the commitment and the transition. So an individual signs up for the hybrid and what their experience is not what they anticipated. I imagine moving back to online is something that probably could be done almost without really a formal process. But what about if there's somebody online that decided they want to go back into the hybrid? Have we more or less committed to the next marking period? Or I'm sorry if I lost this may have been already explained in previous meetings, so I apologize.
That's okay. No, Mr. Owens, we are definitely looking for a commitment through the end of January. And then at that time, we'll reevaluate and put another survey out. And parents can either choose to stay in the hybrid model or go to Methacton online. And of course, there are extenuating circumstances that'll be done on a case-by-case basis, but we're really looking for that commitment just so it helped build that social distancing and making sure that those routines and procedures are in place. So yeah, we are hoping for the second marking period for the secondary, and it'll be the middle of the second trimester for elementary.
Okay, but if someone who was has decided to go hybrid and chooses to go back online, is that a different type of decision making?
Yeah, to shift it back is a little different than going from online to the hybrid model.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from members of the board? Ms. Cancro, thank you for raising your hand.
You're very welcome.
I'm sorry, Ms. Reese.
I just want to clarify, I'm excited for you to have that teacher's guide and the different options of how you're doing the delivery as we're doing the live stream. I think I love the video that we showed, but I had a lot of questions follow up afterwards of, well, are the children going to be sitting in the building with the computer open? Why would that happen? And it's basically they're doing online in the building. So there's a little bit of misconceptions for the elementary school kids. You know, they thought they were going to be wearing a headpiece, doing a virtual Zoom while they're sitting in the class. So I don't know if there's some way that we could even do like a follow-up video showing different demonstrations or sharing with the parents after we get started, just to show them that the child will be sitting there looking at the presentation of the parent, the teacher doing it on the board. There's no need for that computer to be open, so they won't have those kind of Zoom sounds coming out and back sounds. So I don't know. I just want to make sure that the parents have a clear picture, because I thought the video was great, but I definitely understood why some parents were concerned, because the demonstrators had their computer open, it opened it up, they had a side view. I just want to make sure the parents have a clear picture. So
yeah, that's a great point. And that was just one model, Ms. Cancro. So just this instructional faculty guide that we're putting out in the next year too, we'll go over that. And also the tech integrators will be able to share, and the coaches will be able to share more information next week on the 3rd and 4th. But yes, our goal is to have those laptops closed whenever possible, so there can be some small group interaction, independent work as well. And the teacher can still be engaged with those online learners.
And any other final questions on the matter? Seeing no others, so that ends the. We have a hand.
I had my hand raised.
I was actually raising my hand on behalf of Ms. Drummond, but I have something as well. So go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for all the information. I just wanted to clarify a couple points about November 3rd and November 4th, and the time allowed for or allotted for the teachers to set up their rooms versus for professional development. So is it choices both days, or can you just explain or clarify that further?
Yeah, sure. And it's just, this is a real rough draft. We'll be fine tuning it, but so there'll obviously be on Tuesday, November 3rd, there'll be the staff meeting that'll happen at each building. And that's so important. That's where they'll go over the health and safety plan, the routines, the procedures, almost like the welcome back that they would normally have in August. And then in the afternoon, later that morning in the afternoon, there's room prep. There's tech setup support as needed with the integrators and coaches. So that'll be happening pretty much on November 3rd. So there's some room time, as well as that really important faculty meeting, that staff meeting, because there's just so much to go over in that health and safety plan. And then on November 4th, there's sessions, choice sessions, as well as some required sessions going over COVID-19 training, additional protocols. There's just a whole myriad of things for the instructional assistants, the PCAs, the recess aides, learning those procedures as well. So that'll all take place, on November 4th. That's that Act 80. That's where that's more professional development, as opposed to the 3rd, which is more of the staff meeting, work in your classroom, meet with the tech coaches and tech integrators. But the teachers will get all of this in the next.
Primarily on the 3rd. I mean, there will be ample time for room setup and everything. It's not going to be a lot of professional development aside from the faculty.
Right. Yeah, that's mostly dedicated for the 4th.
Okay. And then I have another question, more like an idea. And that is about maybe providing an opportunity for the students who are remaining virtual to come in and meet their teachers in person. I just think that would add a lot of value to the educational experience for those children, remaining virtual. Just something to think about if there's any way to possibly do that. I think that because there is a, pretty high percent who are staying back, but, it would be, I think, a great opportunity and really help them out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Drummond. Ms. Abdulaziz, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just had one question, and it's really just about one particular day. So when the hybrid students are coming in for their orientation, the new ones in each building, what will be going on for the virtual students?
So they'll be working out a plan. There may be some asynchronous. It may not be the whole day where that orientation will take place. It may just be a part of the day, maybe a certain period. So they're working on specific plans at the building level, and they'll be communicating that out as well. But it's not going to be a whole day of orientation, just like it wouldn't be for the other students. But so that may be a blended learning day. But again, that's going to be decided at the building level, grade level, and department as well. But again, there's more information going out probably later this week to families and the teachers.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Not seeing any others. That ends the presentations scheduled for this evening. I'll turn the agenda back over to Madam President.
Thank you, Dr. Zerbe. Okay, so we have our reports up next. I'm going to assume that all the board members have submitted their reports and they are attached. And if they haven't been, they will be in the very near future. I know there's occasionally one or two stragglers.
So Kim, can I just?
Yes, Mr. Winters.
I'm sorry. There was a recommendation that we walk through, or is that we're planning on do since we did not have the work session last week, that we would walk through before we took comment on voting items?
Walk through the entire agenda?
Yeah, because I think there's a dialogue that goes along with there that I think the purpose of the work session still could be performed here prior to, but you could do what I was just an idea. So.
Okay. If anyone else has any thoughts. Okay, I think it is important for us though to make sure that we have discussion, as we always do during the work session, and really dive into any topics that we have questions on. So we have our committee reports here. It does actually look like they're all attached there, so good job. The intermediate unit, Ms. Reese.
The intermediate unit does not meet in October, but I will jump ahead to North Monco very briefly if Liz doesn't mind. We did meet this month, and as most of the parents know, but just to allow the community to know, so 9th and 10th is going to start back. It's very complicated, but they did an amazing job. I won't get into too many details, but there are a lot of 9th and 10th graders. And, with 5 sending districts, They were able to figure it out. They have pretty strict parameters in place and had to limit it to a certain number, but they're working very, very diligently on it. And it's a huge undertaking. I heard a little bit of just people questioning it, and I understand that, but it's a really big undertaking between not only the staff at North Montco, but all the superintendents of the 5 schools. So that's just great. And the director, Gina Partovich, wanted us to know that the students are doing a phenomenal job. She's been so impressed that the students at North Montco who are currently in the building have had, like, I don't want to say zero because I have my notes, but like such limited discipline issues with the on-premise, and just the staff and has been incredibly impressed. So kudos to those students. And on another note, cosmetology, under very strict guidelines, has been able to resume, or will be able to resume. And Montgomery County worked very diligently with the tech center, because it's impossible for those cosmetology students to get their hours without working on human beings and human heads. So they're working on that. So that's great news. And the restaurant is a whole nother piece of this. I know many of us have gone to lunch at the restaurant. They're working through that, but when it does reopen, their first hope is curbside pickup. So if and when that occurs, I will let everybody know, and I will volunteer. Well, maybe not, because I'll be teaching, but maybe I'll volunteer somebody to go curbside pick up that. And I think that was really the gist, but I really wanted to give a shout out to our tech center staff and students for their great work.
Thank you, Ms. Reese. Ms. Drummond, do you have anything else on North Montco?
Nothing really additional to add, just to echo really the sentiment from Gina was that, you know, the students are doing such a great job. Everyone's really working well together, and they're looking forward to increasing student attendance.
Thank you, Ms. Drummond. Moving on to our student board representatives report. We have Chris Spletzer and Serena Goodridge. So not sure who's up first.
I am going first. So colleges have started doing visits for seniors, but they're online. So the class of 2021 can just sign up via Naviance, and then the link will go live when the meeting starts. And even with COVID, the sports have been doing really well. Boys cross country has improved their record to 4-1, and they are qualified for districts. Chris is a part of that team. That's why he's cheering. Volleyball beat OJR recently in 3 straight sets. That's super impressive. The girls soccer had their senior night on October 15th to celebrate the class of 2021. And field hockey had their Play for the Cure game on Wednesday, October 21st, and they raised over $2,600. Chris.
Hi. Yeah, so just wanted to note, seniors are starting to get their college applications in with an early admissions deadline of November 1st, and that's exciting. The AP exams all have been officially ordered, and notable this year is that there is no cancellation fee. So students are able to order whatever they'd like and cancel them at no additional cost, which is exciting. As far as the hybrid plan goes, I thought that I could offer a different perspective perhaps to the rest of the board. And I found that in most of my conversations with peers and other students in the district, most of these students are trying to balance the possibility of interaction with their fellow students, as well as the potential benefits of the in-person environment versus the online environment. And I'd just like to say, in AP government, recently we just did a project about trying to find the best system to go back to school. And needless to say, it was exceptionally difficult. So I think I speak for everybody in the district when I say thank you for the plan and all the work that you've all done. And I'm excited to see how it goes. Thank you.
Chris, for a second there, I thought you were going to solve all of our problems for us. I was holding out hope. All right, thank you both. We have for the Methacton Education Foundation, we have Miss Nikki Krelovich.
Thank you very much. Tonight, I'm excited to let you know that we finally officially launched the Methacton Alumni Network. I know we're going to pull up the website today, but the official name of the Methacton Network is the Methacton Alumni and Friends online digital community. As you know, connections are more important now than ever in 2020. And the Methacton Education Foundation has built this online alumni network where our alumni, supporters, teachers, parents, partners, and local businesses can connect. This is a digital community where you can find old classmates, connect with new friends, learn about special events when we have them again, find out about opportunities to give back and connect with Methacton. So we invite all of our Methacton alumni and friends to join today. Our website, as you'll see here, is methactonalumni.org. And if you take a look at the top here, you can see some of the fun things that are available to members of our website. It is free to join, but to get past the gateway, you do need to sign up. As we're pointing at the Join tab here, and you can click on that to sign up. Your information is protected, and you can choose what information you want to share publicly. The directory is also a gated and private directory, only available to those folks who sign up for the alumni website. And there are some firewalls, I would say, in place so that you can't people aren't going to get spammed by signing up for the alumni website. To be able to look people up, you have to have 2 pieces of information about them. If you look at the directory tab here, you'll see that you need to you'll have to log in and you'll have to sign up to be able to look people up, and then you'll have to enter some information about them to be able to find who they are. We also have a news section here, which will include things about the district and about our alumni, about things that are happening. And then, of course, to learn more about alumni in our alumni spotlight section, you have to be a member to view that as well. So all of the good stuff, you're going to want to join Methacton Alumni and Friends to see what's going on. We will have volunteer opportunities. And of course, because we are the Education Foundation, you can always donate because we're here to build stronger schools. And that's pretty much it. I don't know if anybody has any questions about Methacton Alumni and Friends.
I just want to say, Nikki, this is a long time coming, and this is outstanding work. So I know you took the football, you got it across the goal line. It's been 50 years in the making. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be able to provide this value for our alumni. I think it's going to be a great way for people to connect. And yes, it's going to be able to help us provide more opportunities for all of our students and Methacton graduates, both past and present. So thanks for the opportunity to do this and to connect our almost 20,000 alumni graduates and connect them with our kids who are currently in school. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Krelovich. I'll be encouraging the 2 alumni that live in my house to sign up. For communications, Ms. Kelly?
Thank you, Madam President, and good evening, everyone. As we prepare for the return of students in the hybrid environment, we are also excited to announce that meals will continue to be available at no cost for all students through the end of December 2020. Beginning on November 9th, breakfast and lunch meals will be served to students on their on-premises days while they're in the building. And we will also continue to offer meals for families to pick up curbside, but on a new day and time schedule. We've emailed this information to district families as well as posted on the district website, Facebook, and Twitter pages. And some more good news to share about the Methacton Backpack Program. We have stationed donation boxes outside of the East Wing entrance at Methacton High School and the Arcola Intermediate School main entrance to provide an easily accessible way for members of our school community to drop off prepackaged food donations for the backpack program. So please visit the Methacton Backpack Program's official Facebook page by visiting facebook.com/Methacton Backpack for a list of most needed prepackaged food items and for more information on how you can help support our students through this incredible program. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. And now for our superintendent's report, Dr. Zerbe.
Thank you, Madam President. This evening, I just want to bring the public and the board up to date on the Act 34 process. So it's important that everyone knows that the Board of School Directors have completed all the required actions as outlined under the Act 34 process. That is prior to accepting any bids on new construction of a school building. In previous presentations, KCBA, our architect firm, had used slides indicating that the board would take an action to accept the hearing documents and related comments. That matter was reviewed by our solicitor and was determined not to be a requirement under the Act 34 process. In order to remain consistent with the law, I am hereby acknowledging that the board completed the Act 34 process and has posted the comments received on our public website and have provided the board with the same. We appreciate all that have provided comments and attended the hearing. And we look forward to continuing the conversation about the Arrowhead Elementary School in our property as well as work session and voting meeting in November. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zerbe. I also have just a brief statement about contract negotiations that I wanted to say. So our board has a negotiations team, and we have met with members of the Methacton Education Association approximately 16 times, beginning in early January of 2020 and as recently as just last week. Both sides have agreed in these meetings that we've made substantial progress in our effort to come to an agreement. While things did slow down at the beginning of the pandemic, progress has still been made since March, and the board remains committed to continuing to work towards an agreement. At this point, we will take public comment on board action items. This is an opportunity for residents to comment on matters to be decided upon as outlined on the agenda. We ask you keep your comments to approximately 4 minutes or less. The board may choose to respond to matters following conclusion of the comments on board action items. It can be helpful when you are speaking on board action items to reference exactly where in the agenda the items can be found. It helps us in being able to address those comments when we get to that part of the agenda. So for anyone that registered to speak this evening, if you could just raise your hand in the Zoom call, and I will begin calling on some participants.
Ms. Larsenes, can I ask a quick question first? Like, this is my hand.
You didn't pre-register, but I'll allow it, Ms. Reese.
All right. I just wanted to ask you, because I'm not on the negotiations committee, did you say you've met 16 times? I wanted to get that number correct.
Approximately 16 times between early January and now, with some members of the negotiation team and some members of the association.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so first up I have Mr. John Andrews. Mr. Andrews, you are in whenever you are ready.
I'm ready. John Andrews, Lower Providence. On the list of bills, page 7, I don't have a check number, but it lists Keystone Realty Advisors and assessment fees, something about $45,000. I'd like to get an explanation of that line item. Also, I'd like to speak ahead of courtesy of the floor relative to the November Education Committee meeting. It was posted on the meetings list at
Mr. Andrews, if it's not a voting item, it really should wait until later.
Well, I think that there's an issue of a November 2nd education meeting that was not at the end of the working session agenda. I feel I've been cut off.
No, you're still there.
Oh, okay, thank you. And also, the policy committee meeting for November was originally listed as November 4th, and now it's shown as November 2nd. So I think some clarification on those would be appreciated ahead of courtesy of the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Next, I have Mr. Bickelman. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, are you there?
Yep, just state your name and municipality, please.
My name is Joe Bickelman. I'm from Audubon, the village without a school in Lower Providence. I'd like to speak to item 11C3. It's the approval of the resignation for retirement for Mary Mandia. She is the secretary to the superintendent. I just want to say that I had the opportunity to meet Mrs. Mandia when she was at Eagleville, and she was very professional, and she had a very pleasant personality, and I'm sure she served a lot of years here at Methacton, and I'm sure she'll be missed. The other item I would like to speak to has to do with the fiscal reports. It's item 10B, the treasurer's report. I'd like to speak to the $6.4 million that is held in escrow for the Shannondale appeal. This appeal has been going on for in excess of 10 years. Shannondale pays their taxes, and 25% of their taxes each year goes into this account while this is being litigated, discussed, negotiated between taxpayer and the district. $600,000 went in there this year. Okay. So this has been going on 10 years, an assessment appeal, which is ridiculous. I know the district just hired a forensic accountant, probably to discuss the income power of that development and estimate the income if they're going to do the assessment based on income generation. But this is something that should have never gone on for 10 years. I can't imagine what the legal fees has been on this for over 10 years. The $600,000 that represents 25% of the bill this year that was put away, that was put on the backs of the taxpayers. Their millage went up to cover the $600,000, as it did every other year before that to cover the $6.4 million. So I think when this finally gets settled somehow, and whatever is left for the district, and I'm sure there will be money left for the district to put back in their coffers, this money should go back to the taxpayers in the form of a rebate check. They should get the money back since they've been shouldering the burden for this assessment appeal for over 10 years. 10 years. That's a lot of legal fees. And I don't know why this couldn't be settled long before this. So this money, any money that comes back to the district favorably, needs to go back to the taxpayers in the form of a check, because we've been shouldering it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bickelman. Next, I have Brian Arnshaw. Okay, whoops, looks like I got the wrong person in. Try again. Okay, Mr. Earnshaw, you should be in whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Brian Earnshaw, Lower Providence. First, thank you to Mr. Winters for suggesting that the board run through the agenda for the meeting, and as you would during the work session. There are a number of items that I didn't fully understand on the agenda that I had hoped that would occur. So I really can't comment on because I really don't know all the facts behind them or really what they're all about. So it's very disappointing that Mr. Winter's suggestion seems to have fallen on deaf ears here. That being said, again, I also have comments on fiscal item 10B, which is the treasurer's report. I had a lot of the same comments about as Mr. Bickelman had about the Shenandoah Reserve. And I agree with everything he said, and including the ultimate disposition of those funds when this matter eventually gets resolved. I will also point out that $6.5 million balance is equivalent to the revenue the district gets from tax increases over about 3.5 years. So it's a sizable amount that, as Mr. Bickelman stated, that the taxpayers have borne. Also in the Treasury report, I had a question regarding the Pliget government obligation bond 2020A account that has $18 million, which is the early borrowing for the Arrowhead construction. I note that the interest rate on those funds is now down to 0.07%, and the district is currently paying over 2% out on those bonds. So right now it's carrying the annual carrying cost of this by borrowing early is up to $360,000. So I'm wondering if there's anything to be done to mitigate the cost of the district borrowing early for the Arrowhead project when interest rates are really going nowhere for the foreseeable future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Earnshaw. Anyone else who pre-registered that has comments on board action items? Okay, moving on with our agenda. May I have a motion to approve the suspension of Board Policy 006.2 with specific regard to limitation of the number of school directors participating in a meeting electronically?
Reese.
Thank you, Ms. Reese. Is there a second?
Hall will second.
Thank you, Ms. Hull. Comments from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the work session held September 22nd and the regular board meeting held September 29th as attached?
Reese.
Thank you, Ms. Reese. Is there a second?
Drummond.
Thank you, Ms. Drummond. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries 8-0. Fiscal items, Mr. Berker.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight for your approval is the list of bills, the treasurer's report, budgetary transfers, 2021 capital projects. We have 2 items, one for Eagleville to approve David Blackmore and Associates to perform the geotechnical exploration at Eagleville, $5,650. The second one is for the high school canopy and pad project, which is to approve Zug and Associates to review the construction submittals for a fee not to exceed $1,500. And finally, we have an approval for the Connex open system recommendation to approve Connex for a fee of $24,900 to begin work on an open system for the HVA system at the high school.
Both items D and E were moved by the property committee in this month's meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Bricker and Dr. Zerbe. Does anyone want to take any fiscal items separately? Okay, can I have a motion to approve items A through E as presented under fiscal?
Winners.
Thank you, Mr. Winters. Is there a second?
Drummond.
Thank you, Ms. Drummond. Any comments from the board? Mr. Winters?
Yeah, Tim, if you could speak towards the item that we discussed in the property committee meeting related to the Keystone and how that process works.
Okay, Keystone Advisors is a company that goes out and identifies properties that are underassessed for evaluation to see if they would fit the criteria of the school district, which would require a minimum tax increase of $10,000. That's due to the fact that that would cover the cost associated with doing the tax increase appeal. On this specific invoice, there was 2 properties that were completed. We paid the Keystone for the years associated with the original appeal on each of them. It is no less than 3 years, but can go longer depending on the time frame that it takes to, I guess, either litigate and or get a settlement associated with that.
Thank you, Mr. Bricker. Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 8-0. Personnel items, Mr. Regina.
Good evening, Madam President. We have a number of items for the board's approval this evening. We have 1 contract renewal. We have 3 classified resignation for retirements. And to Mr. Bickelman's point, all 3 of these individuals are major losses for the district. He spoke to Mary Mandia, and I can tell you from working closely with Mary and with Diane Seeberger, we are losing 2 very valuable teammates from the Farina Education Center. I've had the opportunity to meet Bernadette as well, and I know she's a fantastic PCA for us. So 3 major losses for us. We have 2 classified employments, 1 professional uncompensated leave, and 6 supplemental contracts. Each of those coaching contracts, sponsorship contracts, and I believe there's 2 supplemental contracts for duties that were from retirements that had occurred this summer and individuals that had to fill in to finish up some of the duties for those individuals that had retired. And then 1 volunteer list. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Regina. Does anyone want to take any of these personnel items separately? Okay, may I have a motion to approve all personnel items as presented?
Reese.
Thank you, Ms. Reese. Is there a second?
Winters.
Thank you, Mr. Winters. Any comments from the board?
Aye.
Ms. Reese?
One question, couple comments. Mr. Regina, winter coaches, there's not too many vacancies. There's always some. So I just like to know kind of where we are in that process.
I actually haven't had the opportunity to speak with Dr. Spewak in a couple days. So I'll follow up with him tomorrow, but I know he's working diligently to make sure that we have all those positions covered by the start of the year.
Understood. And then as far as comments, thrilled to renew that first contract on the list there. Not too happy to accept those retirements, but wish those 3 ladies all the best.
Thank you, Ms. Reese.
Any other comments from the board? Mr.
Yeah.
Winters?
I'd also like to comment on the retention of Mr. Regini. I think your ability to gain the respect of all parties in the district in such a short period of time speaks as a tremendous asset to Methacton, and I'm thrilled to be renewing your contract.
Thank you, Mr. Winters.
Ms. Drummond?
And I'll just echo the thoughts around Mary Mandia's retirement and what a warm and wonderful personality she is, and just all the care that she's brought to the district. It's been a real pleasure to work with her, and I wish her all the best in her retirement.
Any other comments? Yeah, I'll just reiterate, Mary Mandia, in addition to being the superintendent secretary, is the secretary to the board. So she has to deal with the 9 of us and our occasional craziness and our failure to respond to emails and trying to schedule executive sessions and all of the other insanity that comes with managing a group of 9 volunteers. And she always does it with a smile, and she always does it with humor. And it has been an absolute joy to work with her over the last few years. And yes, she will be greatly missed, but she's not going to be gone. We'll find a way. We will track her down when COVID's over. We're going to have a night out with Mary Mandia. All right. If there's no other comments on personnel matters, then I'll take a vote here. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries 8-0. Curriculum and programs, Dr. Walsh, I believe you have the evening off in that arena tonight. Policy, we have 7 policies coming up for first reading and 12 policies up for second reading. Are there, well, first, may I have a motion to approve the 12 policies for second reading?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Ms. Hull. A second?
Winners.
Seconds.
Mr. Winters with the second. Any comments on these policies? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Gifts and donations. It looks like we have 2 music donations from the O'Brien family for the Skyview music program. Thank you so much. And then we have the approval of the winter athletic and activities health and safety plan. So may I have a motion to approve the gifts and the winter activities health and safety plan as presented?
Reese.
Thank you, Ms. Reese. And Sarah, second.
McGinnis.
Thank you, Mr. McGinnis. Any comments from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Dates for board members' calendars. Dr. Zerbe, I know there was some questions about whether or not these dates had been changed. Can you confirm these are the correct dates, or that where we can make sure that the dates are correct?
As of right now, I would not count on the dates listed on this agenda.
Okay, so the dates for the meetings have been advertised as required and are posted on the district website. So board members, we should all have these in our calendars. But for members of the public, if you are looking for one of our meetings, please just look to the website and the calendar that's posted there for the correct dates. And I apologize for any confusion that created. Is there any old business this evening?
Not really old business, but just quickly wanted to mention 2 things. I wanted to acknowledge all the staff that Dr. Mangano mentioned at our COLA, because all of them have probably worked with my own children in some way or another. And I wanted to profusely apologize to Miss Motley, who is dealing with one of my twins this year, who does not seem to know how to do an attendance ticket. So she deserves that award even more so. I like to be open and honest. And although this meeting is not about me, I have received comments from some members of the public that they sometimes see me making faces or what have you. And I just wanted to acknowledge that I have been on Zoom for months and I live with 4 humans and 6 animals. So I apologize that sometimes my humans get in the way. And I know people have commented that about my dog recently. So I just wanted you to know that for those who care and wonder, I have been nursing this little guy back to health for about 3 weeks after a very serious accident. So she has popped her head in and is doing very well. So she's not barking, but I apologize if it seems unprofessional or what have you, but living on Zoom for all of us is a challenge. So thank you to the members of the public for their understanding and to the members of the board for their understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reese. Yes, real life does spill over into Zoom, sometimes at the most inopportune times. Anything else for old business?
Can I just make one comment?
Absolutely, Ms. Hall.
I know that my article was referenced that I shared earlier, and I wanted, if anyone did not receive it from me and was interested, I just wanted to point them to policylab.chop.edu/blog. That is where they have numerous articles posted, and the one that was referenced tonight was dated October 14th. There's a lot of good information on that site.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. I sometimes think maybe you should get your own blog going just to share all of the information that you find. You are always a wealth of information for the rest of us on the board, so thank you. Anything else for old business, Ms. Drummond?
I just want to shout out to the Aramark, the cafeteria staff for the lunch distribution. I know we've been moving a lot of lunches out to families, and I just want to commend them for all the work that they're doing, standing outside and doing that. And it's much appreciated by the district's families. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Drummond. Anyone else with old business? Anyone with new business? Ms. Hull?
Actually, I'm not sure if this is old or new, but I have actually been watching some of the live streaming of the sports, and I was curious, while we have Dr. Spiewak on the call, if we know, assuming that we will be moving forward with winter sports, if we will continue to try to attempt to stream those games, and if we would have announcers for any of them.
Yes. First, a shout out to Mr. Bradley Wolf, who you saw on the agenda tonight. He has gone above and beyond to announce, and the attempt was to announce many of our events, but we did have some challenges throughout the installation process, but we had a very successful streaming process Friday night. And to answer your question, the camera system is installed already in the main gym and is fully calibrated and ready to go for our winter season. And so any event that would take place in the main gymnasium would be streamed, and with a little bit of additional support moving forward, we should have opportunities to stream events outside of the main gym as well. So yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Winters?
So this is an idea that may fall flat on its face, but maybe for Amanda. One of the comments that have been made to us many times is the ability to reach out beyond those that are involved with the schools and getting more of the community to understand what's going on. I don't know if there's a way to partner with Lower Providence that sends out I don't know how often it comes out, but there's a Lower Providence newsletter that comes out with much information of what's going on the township. If they would give us a page to provide some updates on a monthly basis for Methacton, and then similarly, if there's something in Worcester Township that could be used so that we could get a broader perspective without really a tax impact. And hopefully Lower Providence Township supervisors would consider that, and possibly Worcester as well, to broaden our communication to community members that may not be actively having a student go through the district.
The ability for us to be able to do that is being investigated, so stay tuned.
Anything else for new business? All right, so the board will now take courtesy of the floor. This is an opportunity for residents to comment on matters that could come before the board of directors. We ask you to keep your comments to 4 minutes or less. We may choose to respond to matters following the conclusion of courtesy of the floor. And I neglected to ask earlier if you could just begin by stating your name and municipality where you live. So anyone that has pre-registered to speak during courtesy of the floor, if you could just raise your hand. Okay, Mr. Bickelman, you are in whenever you're ready.
Hang on. You there?
Yes, I am.
Joseph Bickelman from Audubon, Lower Providence. I just want to speak to the fact that it's been printed. It's on the district website that there would be a vote on Act 34 tonight. It's hard to believe that we have an architect that does many fine school designs that actually puts on a slide Act 34 vote. And it's also on the website, still on the website, and it's not going to be voted on. So you have an architect that put that on there, and the architect's to blame, and we don't run it by the solicitor. Nobody checks it out till now. So it just seems a little bad business. Before you reject the bids in November for building an Arrowhead, I want to say that you shouldn't build a new Arrowhead because of capacity. You have Arcola Intermediate School that has 771 kids. It holds 1290 functional capacity, according to Dr. Zerby. And you should move 6th grade over there and set up the K-5. You shouldn't build a new Arrowhead because you don't have enrollment figures that dictate building a school for 625 kids. Okay, you don't have an enrollment projection that says that. You're building a building for 625 kids. The current one is 550 students. Okay, so you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't build a new Arrowhead because you didn't have the money to do it in the first place. You had to refinance 2013 and 2016 debt at a cost of $500,000 in order to afford the payments in the budget. So you didn't have the money to do it. You don't have the money to do it. You couldn't fit the payments in the budget for the new borrowing for Arrowhead. Get this, you had a capital improvement plan in 2016 done by AEM, a professional consultant, telling you what it's going to take to fix all the buildings and catch up on the capital repairs. It was $14 million to repair Arrowhead, and the board estimated or had estimates done that it would be $25 million to rebuild. Sounded like you were going to repair Arrowhead. Then the architect comes in, KCBA. KCBA says it's not going to take $25 million to build a new Arrowhead. It's going to be $34 million to build a new Arrowhead. So that $14 million to repair looks pretty bad. You'd repair it if it cost $34 million to build a new one. So the new architect said it's going to be $32 million to repair, which is up close to the $34 million to rebuild. So the decision is basically easy to make for the board. Oh, by the way, the architect is getting 5.5% of the total cost, which is about $1.5 million. I need an answer of why the gym at the new Arrowhead is 2.5 times the size of the current gym, why it has a separate cafeteria in the new Arrowhead. You need to tell me why it's that much bigger. The Act 80 day on 11/3 counts as a student instruction day, counts towards those 990 hours of student instruction, teachers in front of the room instructing the kids. It's an in-service day for teachers, and there's other Act 80 days. The kids lose out because they're not getting instructed. I want to say that Chris Spletzer and Serena Goodrich did a great job on their student report today, and Chris really looked sharp in his tie. He knows where he is. Dr. Zerbe, no comment on your secretary retiring. That's bad taste. I just don't get that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bickelman. Next, I have John Andrews. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Andrews.
Providence. A few weeks ago, I had some email communications with Mary Mandia, and they were written so pleasantly that I wrote to her at that time saying that when she took the Emily Post course, whenever she did it, that she must have gotten an A+. So her wonderful way of working here will be missed. This evening, there was an agenda item, Act 34 vote, that the superintendent addressed that as if nothing happened over the last 60 days of comments. 60 days in which the public opposition to a new Arrowhead loomed huge. Perhaps an 8-to-1 opposition to it. I think this evening would be an excellent time for the board to have some discussions relative to this series of events, the public discourse and the urge via the superintendent that there be no discussion. I would have liked to have heard the board president speak to the issue. It's not an education matter, it's a board policy matter. And the president should be capable of speaking for the board, not relying on some administrator to speak for the board. There also is diminishing support for Arrowhead. There are only 28 parents that spoke up for it in terms of hearing testimony. High school rank has been in decline. That became obvious in 2019 and in 2020. Rank has gone from 11 to 65. Perhaps that's related to the enrollment decline. Over 11 years, 12% decline, worst in the county. It says we need to fix something. Replacing Arrowhead won't be the fix for that something. The Arrowhead plan is extravagant and unjustified. And in terms of capacity addition, there's no enrollment projection to support that. The logical enrollment projection is a continuation of the decline, adding to excess empty seats. The full-day kindergarten plan is unsettled. It's still the fall, and maybe that's a TBD for later this fall. We shouldn't be contracting out for rooms that we'll never need. The debt load of the Arrowhead School may limit future financial flexibility, and it will certainly have an impact on the salaries schedule over multiple contracts. The debt load goes out to the year 2046. Again, I say that this evening, when it's not even 9 o'clock, that the board should not be silent on the issue of further discussions of the Arrowhead project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Next, I have Brian Earnshaw. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Earnshaw.
Brian Earnshaw, Lower Providence. Also have some comments regarding the Arrowhead project. I certainly hope that the board is planning to, if they've not already done so, read all of the Act 34 testimony that has been submitted. I found it interesting that 60% of the comments were against this project. And there's a lot of good feedback in there, both for and against, but again, 60% against. I also think it's important that you note the current enrollment trends against projections, which were an important part of this project. If you look at K-4 enrollment in October 2020, actual is 1,588, projected was 1,708. So current enrollment is 7% or 120 students below projected for K-4. Looking at Arrowhead specifically, current enrollment 384, projected at this time was 417, 8% below projection. Another interesting note is that if a school with a capacity of 625 students is built, it will open at a 61% utilization rate, which is essentially where our COLA is right now. Highly inefficient. At the September meeting, Mr. Brooker gave a debt overview, called it a master plan debt overview. I thought it was going to be more keyed around Arrowhead. Some key points missing from that presentation that make sure everyone's still aware of is that the Arrowhead project will increase the debt service requirements of the district by 70% to 140 million, well over 100% of the annual budget. As Mr. Andrews mentioned, the final maturities of debt will go from 2035 to 2046, an 11-year increase. Mr. Bricker also didn't mention in his presentation that there's still borrowings going to be required for the master plan. Those were not factored into any of the analysis that he had put together. And I think that's very important because it doesn't give you a complete picture of where the debt load is going to wind up once all these capital projects are completed. So all very important points. A lot of these issues have been raised over the past few months, if not a couple of years. And it'd be good to hear in the final discussion. I was kind of hoping that it would happen tonight with this the planned Act 34 vote, but obviously that's not happening. So I'm hoping in either the property committee and or work session and board meeting that a lot of these concerns get addressed. And I think it's important that taxpayers here answer these questions and understand what the thinking is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Earnshaw. Okay. Next, I have Sharon Kaplan. Ms. Kaplan, you're in whenever you're ready.
Sharon Kaplan, Lower Providence Township. Tonight, Mr. Winters asked about students who are returning for hybrid, that the students who did choose to return, if they would be able to go back to virtual. And I just think you should know that parents are receiving mixed messages to this question, depending on what school they're in. Some principals are saying, yes, they will absolutely take the student's mental health into, they'll look at the mental health and what's working for the student. And if the student needs to return to virtual, that that's a possibility. Other principals are saying, no, you make a choice and that's what you're stuck with until January 28th. I think we need to remember that we have students who will be returning to our buildings after being away for 8 months. And that alone can cause anxiety in students who have never had anxieties before. And I think that when we are talking about a pandemic and looking at what we have asked of the teachers in showing grace and flexibility to our students since March, I think that the school board and the principals need to also show that same grace and flexibility to the students who are returning to school. And if it's just too much, they need to be given the option to return to virtual. I understand the difficulties in transitioning from virtual to hybrid, but the change from hybrid to virtual really isn't as big an issue as some people seem to think it might be. So I'm just asking that some flexibility be shown to the children who are returning to our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kaplan. Next, I have Chunling Ma. Whenever you're ready, you can unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Chunling Ma from Worcester Township. I just have a question regarding Act 34, a vote, because on September 8th, the hearing, the Act 34 hearing, we heard they will collect the comments until October 8th, and then there will be a board vote happening today, but I do not see the board vote on the calendar in the agenda. Just want the board to give me an explanation, or I believe the board owes the public an explanation on that. Why this one is not happening, and then we were told on September 8th there will be a board vote.
Okay, this isn't really a time for questions and answers, but we can address your comments later.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, did you have anything else?
No, I'm also like the board to address or discuss the feedback you received, the comments you collected from the residents, have a summary, something like that. Like I think Brian Earnshaw and they also mentioned they would like the board to have some discussion on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, and I have Amy Smith. Ms. Smith, whenever you're ready.
Hi, Amy Smith, Worcester. I just wanted to say thank you to the board. I know that it's been a lot of work for everyone, the board, as well as the administration and teachers to prepare for presenting a hybrid option and for bringing that forward. And I also want to say thank you for us to still have the virtual option as well. And I appreciate all the time and effort people have put into it. One thing I would just like to bring to the board's attention is that the DEI office that was voted on back in the summer, there haven't been any public updates to where we stand with that, where we are in the process. I know that it's something that's going to be in development, and I know that there's other things that have been much more pressing at the moment in terms of logistics and education. But I would just like to ask that we have an update on that at the next meeting, so that people are aware of where we are in the process, because it will be a process, right, to establish that office and to bring someone on board to help the district with that, and to collect the data that's needed for analysis before we institute any policies or make any changes in Methacton. So I would just ask the board and the administration that we have an update on that in next month's meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Okay, it doesn't look like we have anyone else with hands raised at this time. So I did want to give the board an opportunity. I had a few things that I wanted to respond to in the public comments there. Obviously, the big concern right now is the fact that we did not vote on the Act 34 hearing documents. I understand that there was some confusion, and I do appreciate that our solicitor weighed in on that. And that was ultimately where our decision lies, is that the solicitor had said that there was no need for an Act 34 vote. And honestly, I think that there may even be, there can be implications of voting for something when it's not a requirement to vote. So if it's not something that we're required to do, please know it does not in any way negate the feedback that we received. I can assure you that every board member has received the feedback. I know that we're all reading through it, and we are very much aware of the public input as part of the Act 34 process. Some of the specific things that I've heard called out a lot in the recent comments about Arrowhead, I know that we've addressed some of these things in the past, and maybe as we move into our November meetings, we can address them again. We've talked about issues such as the capacity at Arcola. We've talked about how capacity at Arcola has actually changed with the construction of Skyview. Portions of Arcola, of the original Arcola 6 to 8 school, are now part of Skyview. So the capacity of Arcola is not the same now as it once was. It's actually reduced. Some of the so-called extra space at Arcola is space that is being used for some of our special education services. It also includes shared science lab space. There's a room that's in between science classrooms that's used for storage of lab equipment and things like that, that is considered to be an unused space, even though it is very much in use in the building. So that is another factor that weighs into the capacity factor, or the capacity figures that we see for Arcola. Another issue that I've heard brought up a lot lately is the capacity for Arrowhead, the size of the gym, the size of the cafeteria. And I do know that we asked some specific questions of KCBA as part of their process, and found that reducing the overall size of the building, whether we build for 525 or 625, whether or not we have the size of gym that we have right now, it's my recollection that that did not significantly impact the overall cost of the building. And maybe that's something that we want to revisit and clarify, but that was my recollection, specifically around the number of classrooms. Obviously, it does make it a little bit cheaper, but not of a magnitude that some may think. Act 80 days counting as instruction time. I'm not sure who it would be that would clarify this, but I believe Act 80 states that days that are used for professional development for teachers by law can be counted as instructional time, because they are directly impacting the instruction that is given to students. So Dr. Zerbe, I don't know if that's something that you can speak to, if that would fall under Dr. Walsh, but just the Act 80, I believe, is referring to an actual statute or law, correct?
Yes, and it refers to the fact where school districts, in lieu of an instructional day for students where instruction is delivered, can provide professional development to their staff. It does not minimize the obligation of the district to meet the hour requirement, but it allows for the district to forego the obligation for the day requirement.
Okay, thank you. And obviously, the professional development and in-service related to the delivery of the hybrid model is going to have a very significant direct impact on our students. So I have no problem with us using an Act 80 day for something that critical at this point in time. I think that is all that I had. I do have a couple more things. If we could, Dr. Zerbe, maybe reach out to building principals over the next few days and just clarify and confirm that everyone is on the same page regarding students shifting from hybrid into virtual, so that we can make sure that all of our families are getting the same message from all building levels. I know there's been a lot of information coming at people over the last few weeks, and so it's understandable that there are some things that we could have mixed messages about. So it sounds like this might be something worth clarifying.
Will do.
And do we have any updates? I know that our DEI team has met, our ad hoc committee has met. Do we have any updates on where that process stands? I see you raising your hand, Ms. Purdue. Is that regarding that? Thank you.
So I was actually going to provide an update last week, but because we didn't have the meeting last week, or we moved it to this week, I didn't provide one. We did capture meeting updates from the ad hoc committee, and that's in the education committee meeting minutes. So in those meeting minutes, the information is there. And briefly to state, we met on October 2nd. And in that meeting, we just reviewed a proposal that's being provided to us by Dr. Bruce Campbell, who's working with other neighboring school districts on the efforts of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I believe Dr. Zerby had a meeting with the building principals to review that proposal. And along with that, some questions that were provided to him to provide some input to Dr. Campbell. And then we plan to meet back together again, hopefully in November, to capture some of that information and just see where we'll take the next approach to. But we'll be working with, based on what happens, we will review whether we'll take the approach to work with Dr. Campbell in the future in our efforts for diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Thank you, Ms. Purdue. I appreciate that. And it's good to know that we can look for those meeting minutes within the education committee minutes. Does anyone else have any parting words, comments, points of discussion? Going once, going twice. Okay, I will take a motion to adjourn. Mr. McGinnis, I know I can count on you. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Purdue. All right. Meeting adjourned. I think this may be the earliest we've adjourned in months. So enjoy, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.